Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome, everybody, to Nightlight. So glad you could join us. Hope you have your shopping and your wrapping all done, and you'll be able to put your feet up and take a short respite with us while we talk about fascinating things. First, I want to thank Ken Quiethawk for that amazing intro. Please check him out on the internet. You can find him by Googling either Native Storytellers or Ken Quiethawk. You'll find his website fascinating, his material enlightening, and a joyful experience will be had by all, I do promise you. Tonight, Mary Joyce, editor of Skyships over Cashiers, returns again to further enhance our understanding of the unusual and profound happenings here on planet Earth. Tonight, we're going to be talking and delving into the evidence of ancient civilizations that have been found off the coast of California. Mary's worked for two major metropolitan newspapers, the Orlando Sentinel in Florida as an artist and columnist, and the Oakland Press in Michigan as a Sunday magazine editor and then a feature editor. On the side, she's written magazine articles and books, and since 2008, she's been the main researcher and editor for the Skyships over Cashiers website, which features a wide variety of cutting-edge topics, from UFOs to secret underground bases, from Bigfoot to Cherokee Little People. She's gone from investigating mob stories in Detroit, including Jimmy Hoffa's death, to interviewing people with the highest top-secret clearances about clandestine government activities. She's even had a face-to-face interview with a whistleblower with cosmic top-secret clearance who once worked within the top tier of the infamous international cabal. Because of her website and book, she's been a frequent guest on radio and TV shows in the USA, Canada, United Kingdom, and Australia, and also Nightlight Radio. You can find her and her amazing website at www.skyshipsovercashiers.com. I do encourage you to check out the website. It's fascinating. You'll get lost in it. Please wait until the show is over to go there, though. The link is in the write-up on the show, and you can click on it. It'll take you right there, and I guarantee you hours and hours and hours of fascinating, titillating information that will absolutely whet your appetite for more. So, welcome to the show, Mary. So glad you could join me. We have some really fascinating material that we're going to go over tonight. Mary, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. We're back on the air.
All righty.
Technology, isn't it wonderful? So you've got some material here. Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so you got some material here that is absolutely fascinating, and I'm very excited to get into it because it sort of connects to a lot of material that I've investigated over the years as far as, civilizations that have sunk and stuff like that. And to find it so close to home, it boggles the mind that it's this close to home and nobody's looked at it yet.
What's fascinating to me is that there have been lots of things written about the things of legends. It's either known as the continent of Lemuria or Mu or Pan, and the old legends say it sank deep into the ocean. And this has been poo-pooed as just a legend. But when you begin to find ancient ruins, off the shore of California, you begin to think there must be something to this. These truly look like ruins from an ancient civilization. I first learned about one way back in 2014, and there was something discovered off the coast of Malibu, and it was only a mile and a half beneath the surface of the ocean, but it was huge. It was 2.5 miles wide, and when you begin to look at the structure, and with Google Earth and some of these different tools, you can measure it. Not only was it 2.5 miles wide, it had this big, large, flat roof on top of it, and it wasn't just like shingles on a house roof. It was like 500 feet thick, and it was held up by pillars that were anywhere from 600 to 630 feet tall. Sort of like a portico in front of the whole structure. There's no way that this is the result of Mother Nature. It has been created by humans or some kind of intelligence. So that's what I first learned about, and that was 6 years ago. And then something got in my head just like 2 weeks ago, and I thought, maybe that's not the only thing along the coast. And so I started using Google Earth and began to scan the entire coast of California and found 3 more ancient structures that clearly are not man-made. One of them, I call it a footprint. It looks like the footprint of an ancient community. And when I measured it, the length of it was, or is, 1,500 yards in length. That translates to the length of 15 football fields. So it's no small footprint, and it has very geometrical corners. And again, it's just, there's nothing like it around it, and yet it is so close to the shore. It's between Long Beach and Huntington Beach, California. And it's only 46 miles from the first structure I learned about in Malibu. So that's 2 that, give evidence that there was something a long time ago that has been submerged. Another one people can find on Google Earth by simply typing in Isla Coronado. And it is an island that would be south of San Diego. And if you just find that island, you don't even need coordinates because this structure is bigger than the entire island. I think it's like 4 miles long. And to me, it looks like a giant Twinkie. And again, there's a portico around the edges of it, and it looks like there's columns. And from above, because it's sloped on the edges, you can see the dots all around the edges of it that kind of outline it. So that's 230 miles from Malibu. So that gives you some idea of how extensive it is. And then even a little bit north of Malibu, I found a 4th ruin, and it looks like a farmer's field, except it's pretty big. It's 25 miles in one direction and 28 miles in the other direction. And even the farmer's strips are wide. They're between a mile and a fourth in width. And when I did all this scanning along the coast, I couldn't find anything else like that. And even if I did, it still doesn't look like Mother Nature would create this crosshatch perpendicular farm field. I'm sure it wasn't a farm field, but nevertheless, it's got structure to it. And that one is just south of Big Sur State Park. I believe it's called Pfeiffer's Big Sur State Park. So those are just some things along the coast of Florida. I mean, not Florida, California, that give credence to this whole idea that there was an ancient civilization in the Pacific.
Well, yeah, I mean, Lemuria and Mu, both of them were fabled to be in the Pacific. Lemuria between Madagascar and India, and Mu just Easter Islandish out in that area. But what gets me is that here in the United States, we don't even think that there could possibly, well, not we, because you and I believe there are, but nobody has put any effort forth to find the antiquity that is out there. I mean, you got the Bimini Road down by Bermuda, but off the coast of California makes a great deal of sense, knowing that the ocean, has risen and fallen by hundreds of feet, over the millennial, over the thousands of years, so that the fact that there were cultures that that our coastline extended that far makes perfect sense, and I don't understand why archaeologists aren't taking a look and seeing what could possibly be there.
Well, there have been a lot of divers and archaeologists that have checked out, let's see if I remember how to say it, Yonaguni ruins off of the island, the far west island of Japan. It's so far west of what we think of as Japan that it's almost touching Taiwan. And there, the underwater structures are truly incredible. They're much clearer than the ones I found along the coast of California. Huge, mammoth stonework, very geometrical. And you had mentioned that perhaps Lemuria and Mu and Pan were different parts of, different civilizations. That may have been such a vast civilization that they really are names for the same place. And I did some research, and again, it was cursory, but even just doing limited research, I found that the word Pan, which is one of the names for this lost continent, the word Pan, P-A-N, shows up in, I found 52 words from 15 countries that touch on the Pacific Ocean. And why in the world would there be so many words using P-A-N? Even in India, they had a King Pandu, and it's just a word that's used over and over and over again. There's one town that's called, and again, I don't know how to pronounce Indian words, but it looks like Panaji, and it means
Panagia, yeah.
They spell it differently than I'm familiar with. That's the reason I'm not sure. It's spelled P-A-N-A-J-I, and rather than Pangaea, which would be over in the Atlantic. But it means land that never floods. So, these are remnants of a civilization that would have been on the outskirts of this sunken structure. There's a Hawaiian ancient chant, which I will not bore everybody with by citing the whole thing, but the chant talks about explosions from volcanoes that blew the earth to pieces. And I think I'll quote this part of it. The swirling, shifting ocean climbed the mountains, sucked in and swallowed up life as it climbed higher and higher above the homes of the inhabitants. And that's part of this ancient Hawaiian chant, which, is right smack in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Well, it just, to me, I do begin to wonder, before the plates shifted, we were all one great big blob of earth, and then the sheets shifted and created the continents sort of as we know them today. So I'm wondering if what you're seeing beneath the surface, certainly I mean if they went and looked at the ones off the coast of Japan, I have no idea why they're not looking at the ones off the coast of California, because especially this one that you initially, I think the big one, this round one with pillars, you said, could this be a UFO landing site or something like that? And my thought is, yeah, that could be a landing site for sure.
The reason that I said that, you found an old article I did back then. And the reason I said that is because there are so many UFOs that are seen in that specific area off the coast, and they're also seen going into the water. So there's speculation that there's a connection between the UFOs and this underwater structure. I don't know which way we should go with this. Both things may be a reality. Maybe the UFOs were part of the ancient civilization too. I do not know. But the other three structures that I found do not have the appearance of something that would be the receptacle for a fly-in UFO. Only that first one off of Malibu.
You've got these beautiful, beautiful pictures of these structures. Now, is that from Google Earth?
Are you talking about the ones I found off the coast of California?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used Google Earth, and then I took pictures of the Google Earth images and put them in the postings.
Because it's so clear, you'd think that somebody flying over. I forget which one of the astronauts took pictures of shipwrecks. I can't remember which astronaut it was, because at some point there was. He shared his journals that he had spotted the shipwrecks in the Caribbean, I believe, and gave them to someone who is now shipwreck hunting from his charts. But if the water is that clear that Google Earth couldn't get them, how can somebody not see this and think we need to investigate that? I mean, it just boggles the mind.
That's a really good question, and I don't have an answer, but if a few of us keep talking about it, maybe more will come of it. We will jump to the other side of the country then. You mentioned Florida. And a long time ago, back in 2012, I did an article about sunken pyramids off the coast of Florida. And the article just talks about 3 sunken pyramids off of Florida's Atlantic coast. But actually there is talk of 6 of them. And 3 of them are on the west side of the Gulf Stream, and 3 are on the east side of the Gulf Stream. And the Gulf Stream is really like a river in the ocean that goes along, just off the coast of the United States. What made me think of it is you mentioned seeing it from above. And what treasure hunters have done for quite some time is they will fly low in small planes at very, very low elevation, and really scoot across the top of the water, looking for sunken ships. And they will do this after major storms, because the storms will stir up the sand, and these things will be evident for a while, and then the sand will cover them back up. I first got a hint of this when, years ago, I lived in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and one day I was at the pier. I was with friends at the bar on the pier, and there was a young couple there, I guess plus or minus 30, and we got into a conversation with them. And they were divers, and they were very excited because they had been diving off the coast of Vero Beach, Florida. And again, it was after a storm had happened, and they saw the peak of a pyramid where the sand had been washed to the side. And
oh, wow.
That was, my God, that was back in when did I live there? I lived there in the 80s. So that was the first hint I ever had that stuff was going on like that. But I didn't start writing about it until we started the website, and the website was started in 2008. And this story that I posted wasn't until 2012. One of the guys that I wrote about, he's actually known as Buster Conway, but his real name is Alfred, and he worked with Mel Fisher, who found found the Etosha treasure ship off of Key West. And so he would fly over along the coastline looking for more sunken treasures or more sunken ships. And one day after a fierce storm, he saw a flat-top pyramid that he said was about 1,000 feet square. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. But again, the sands are constantly shifting, and so these things appear and disappear.
Yeah, but the Bimini Road, of course, that's very close to the surface. So I guess maybe the sands don't have a chance to actually cover that up. But and see, this has always bothered me that the Bimini Road is there, and they're writing it off as natural rock formations. And anybody who looks at it knows that it's not natural, that there was some sort of a port or a harbor there. And they seem to just, archaeologists are funny people. They really don't want you to rock their boat at all, pardon the pun, but they don't want to accept something that goes beyond what they think is,
possible.
Absolute. Yeah. And I know that, from what I've seen from the people that I've talked to, it's absolutely man-made. It has to be, because when you look under these stones, they are supported. It's obviously been laid as a road of some sort or a breakway of some sort. So, we have all of this antiquity around us, and it's like the Japanese, you pronounced it better, the Yogi-Yuri or whatever pyramid out in Japan. I mean, those absolutely are man-made, and yet they've had scientists go down and say, no, this is artificial. And I think that
I'm going to spell the name of that as best I can, because I think everybody ought to go look up photo images of these structures off of that Japanese island. And it's Yonaguni, and it's Y-O-N, I believe it's Y-O-N-A-Guni. I hope I don't have one of the vowels mixed up with that. But Yonaguni. And there's lots of photos that divers have taken, and there's no way you can blow those off as any kind of natural structure. You might possibly be able to do that with the Bimini Road because the rocks are more rounded and, who knows. But these structures are sharp and geometric and huge. And I suggest that everybody, take a look at those.
I totally agree with you, because they, first of all, and don't you find it amazing that these kind of structures that are coming up, the Japanese pyramids underwater and what you've cited, they're massive. They're not little mud hut type things. They're absolutely massive, almost as though.
The structures at Yonaguni, look much more like some of the pyramids in South America or Mexico.
Yeah,
I mean, they're that geometric.
And you do begin to wonder, because did they sink or did the waters rise up? Because of course, at the end of the Ice Age, the ocean level did rise up. So you don't know if it was that the water rose or the structure sank. It's kind of a toss-up. Because
right,
of course,
I wouldn't want to argue one side or the other on that one. But anyway, they ended up underwater, and they weren't always underwater.
How deep are the ones off the coast of California? Did you did mention how many feet, and I can't remember.
I don't know if I can remember off the top of my head on that one.
Yeah, you have the structures, but they're not so deep that you can't dive them. They're not as deep as the Titanic.
Deep, like Google Earth will not give me good images of the deep ocean. So it's a relatively shallow section. In fact, the section off of Huntington Beach, it's just like a flat porch going off from the coastline.
I know. It's just the one from 2014 is the one that really grabbed my attention because it looks like it's a structure for gathering, a structure for working. And when you get to the fact that the pillars are 600 to 630 feet tall, that gives you some perspective as to how huge they must be. You know, it would dwarf any of our buildings just about. You know, for the size of this.
Oh, I got the answer
frankly,
for you. I got the answer
okay.
for you. The one that you're talking about is 1.4 miles beneath the surface of the ocean.
Okay, a tad deep, but yeah, I'm looking at it too. 1.4 miles. But you know, this is what I love. This is history hiding in plain sight. And all you need is somebody to go down and take a look at it. I mean, how could you? The roundness I could see, maybe you could say was natural, but not when you see the pillars underneath holding it up. That to me is saying, oh, there's something here. And
now I'm going to dig way back into my brain, so I'm only going to be able to give you a little bit of what I remember. And Edgar Casey, who was the best known, most respected medium psychic from the 20th century, predicted that somebody would find the ruins of Atlantis, in the area where Bimini is, in, I believe, 1968. That was the year that two young men were in their boat did find it. So that's another kind of one of those. It's support for the whole idea, but it certainly is not something that would pass the sniff test with the scientists. But those who are open to, actually quite credible psychics like Edgar Casey, it gives credence to the whole idea.
Well, yeah, and he also predicted, I believe, a pyramid that is supposed to be there too. Again, my mind goes back that far to remember it, but I can't exactly remember how or when or where because he predicted so much that has come true. It's kind of hard to remember which year he was talking about. But he actually there were men who were treasure hunters that paid him to look for hidden, sunken treasure for them. And he did it, but they never found anything. So, and I loved his explanation. It was that, treasures like that would only be discovered when the consciousness of those looking was appropriate. So, it makes great sense to me. Something's been hidden from all of us for that long, then it's going to take a certain level of consciousness to be ready or able to absorb whatever information is down there. So that does not pertain to sunken ships with, treasure from looting the indigenous peoples. But it's such a tantalizing thing, and the pictures are so obvious. And I look at them and I think, some of this stuff, resembles ancient flower beds and stuff like that have been found in the Michigan area. So that it looks like there was, some sort of community there. And if there was, do the indigenous people have any stories of their ancestors or things like that might take you back? I know that sometimes, Lemuria supposedly sank beneath the waters 12,000 years ago. That's a long time for a myth to hang on. But, you do begin to wonder. I love the fact that it's right here in this country and nobody's looking at it, yet they'll go over and they'll spend millions of dollars digging at Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably stuff that is equally as old here on this continent, and it's just a matter of finding it and investigating it. But apparently a lot of the people who look for antiquities prefer to stick to, the known areas where they are, like Turkey and in Istanbul and Egypt and South America. And yet here we've got something in our backyard that could, that would be fascinating to look into. If you look into it and then you discount it, okay. But I'd love to send a submersible down there and have it check out that one site from 2014, because that to me is a structure. There's no doubt about it.
A bunch of years ago, again, I did an article about America's Stonehenge, and it looks like a smaller version of Stonehenge. It's in the bottom of one of the Great Lakes.
Yes. I think there's also a structure very similar in South Africa, and then of course there's the Stonehenge in New Hampshire. They may well have been more than just something to mark the solstices and the quarter days. It does feel as though there are other purposes to structures like that. And I think one of the things that fascinates me, so that when I cross over, it's a question. I have a list of questions I'm going to ask when I get on the other side. And one of them would be the purpose of Stonehenge, because, we can only look from our frame of reference and try to interpret what things were meant to be for. And we may be so off, that it's going to be almost amusing to find out what they were really meant for, what they were really used for. I mean, it makes sense that it marks the longest days and the shortest days, but that's an awful lot of work to put into something like that, unless there were other purposes for it. And I don't believe...
I sometimes imagine what people in the future would say if they found some of the things that we have now, and how they would interpret them. You would just have to wonder. I mean, what about all these CD discs? If that's all they found were these CD discs all over the place, and they wouldn't have a player, they wouldn't know how to get the information off of it, and they would be puzzled by why in the world these little silver plastic discs are all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, and I think the other thing on the same line was I got to wondering. All right, so we have structures that are over 10,000, some of them 40,000 years old that we've discovered, and we've tried to figure out what they were used for. But what if you went 40,000 years in the future, and the only thing left of our civilization theoretically probably would be whatever was on rock, which means it would be Mount Rushmore. And they would probably be, that's the only thing that our culture to this point in time has left in stone that might survive an ice age and whatever else. So and of course they wouldn't be as sharp as they are today. They would have been weathered by 40,000 years. What would they say? Who were these people? What, were they gods? Were they? I mean, can you imagine? The only thing left of our civilization in 40,000 years may well be Mount Rushmore.
I know there's some movie that I saw, and it either started or ended with the devastation of the United States, and the only thing that they found was the Statue of Liberty.
That Planet of the Apes.
Was that it? I don't know. It's from my ancient past.
Yeah, no, I think they do see her broken and crumbled, but not as much as that many years would probably have done it. But it does make you wonder, what is our legacy? The Egyptians left the pyramids, or maybe it wasn't even the Egyptians. Maybe the Egyptians walked into and found the pyramids and used them. And so what was the culture that was before that? And I sometimes wonder if a lot of the stuff that we've got here today is remnants of maybe one of the last mass extinction times.
I hear what you're saying.
Because you can't explain. Nobody can explain the Great Pyramid. It was a generator, or it was a this, or it was a that. But they have no explanation for really what it was. And all we can do is try to figure out from our frame of reference. It's sort of like, they described UFOs differently than we do today, and so, but we don't have any idea what they are. They could easily be. I don't know. I read science fiction a lot when I was much younger. I had a very quiet childhood, and I at one point I read a book that explained that the population here on Earth was actually where a spaceship went by and they dumped their, how the planes dumped their blue water from their septic systems. that actually a spaceship going by dumped that on his. So we are ascended from the refuge of a spaceship that was going by at some point in time, which is also a possibility for all I know. But it does make you wonder. We have to try to make sense of things, and when we do it, because our frame of reference is so small, we limit the potential of what we're looking at. Just like these wonderful structures that you're seeing, all we can think of is, maybe it was a community, but maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was from 40, 80,000 years ago, before the ice melted. Now, was California covered by an ice sheet? I don't think it was.
I don't think so. The Great Lakes and places like that are the ones that have the actual evidence of, glacial movement.
Mhm. So that, because the land bridge was open at that time, and people did come over the land bridge. So Southern California certainly could have been, it could have been, all that area could have been above ground, and it could have been an amazing civilization. And was it a civilization? Of course, by the looks of those structures, I keep thinking of giants, and I can't stop thinking of giants with pillars that high and that large. I can't imagine how a smaller, culture could have created them. Although
giants, we have lots and lots of evidence of giants, and if you go down the coast, the California coast, and just keep going down into South America, across from Ecuador and Peru is where they have those giant skeletons, skulls, and they're huge, and they're shaped differently than the human skulls.
Yeah, they have elongated skulls. Right. But isn't there an island off the coast of California? I know there is, and it's not Catalina, that had tons of bones of giants.
I do not know.
Oh, yeah, there is, and I remember Patrick and I talking about it one time. So, and it's an island off the coast of California that just was loaded with bones of giants. I'm going to have to go back and take a look at all of my records, because I remember specifically talking about that with him and saying, I wonder why. I wonder, were they driven there and then died there, or is that where they buried their dead, or, just what was the purpose of it? Because
your head's going to pop with all the questions you have.
I know. I have a real long list, but apparently I have forever to ask, so it's okay. but there are so many things that are left dangling for us, and you just kind of wonder why, or what was the purpose of this? And this down a mile, that's not that much. How far would the sea had to have retreated? A lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have had to have been during an ice age. So
Correct.
that puts it back. If that puts it back, the end of the last ice age was about 12,000 years ago. So it puts it back, and the Bosnian pyramids are about 40,000 years old. So it would put it back. Yes?
Some people, and I don't know how to justify this or confirm it, say that the Yanaguni monuments or ruins are the oldest in the world. And they say they're the remnants of a civilization that, existed, millions of years ago and subsided or disappeared about 24,000 years ago. Now, I have no way of confirming that in any way whatsoever, but that's one of the things I've read.
Well, that would in the middle of an ice age when they disappeared, which would make sense.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, not that they've been actually verified, but I believe they're there. The structures in Antarctica, how long ago that must have been. But that
good question.
But
we're never going to run out. We're never going to run out of things to explore. But I'm going to emphasize again that I would love for all your listeners to remember how to spell Yanaguni, and I'm going to spell it one more time because I think everybody ought to look at these images. It's Yonaguni. Yonaguni.
And check it out on
you don't. That doesn't convince people.
Oh, geez, yeah. Well, and check it out on YouTube because there are some YouTubes of them of divers diving on them that are just phenomenal. I think a number of people. I've seen a number of shows of the divers that have gone down and looked at it, and they come back saying it has to be man-made. It can't be artificial.
I think the people who try to dismiss it as some kind of natural formation are, I don't know, totally blind.
Well, I go along with you on that. I know the one Japanese scientist who has done the most work on it has created a model of it, and it's phenomenal looking, and it's huge, and I think the worst occupation, and yet the most fascinating, is that of an archaeologist, so long as you have an open mind. And so many archaeologists don't have an open mind. It's not like, oh, this can't be, instead of, wow, wonder how that happened. I mean, there's so many ways of testing things. I'm not sure. I know they can't carbon date rock, which makes it all very, very difficult. But how do you date something that old? I mean, I know usually they do it from artifacts that are scattered around it, but obviously they haven't found any.
No, it's all the small things have disappeared.
And the ones that you found, especially the one from 2014, appear to not have any. I mean, they've got the columns, but but if they're as old as the hills, then there wouldn't be any artifacts around them, so that there would be no way to really time date them, except I would think that something like this had to predate the last ice age.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes you back really, really far. And now they're coming. Now scientists are saying that even the pyramid and the Sphinx predate the last ice age as well. So that I can sit back and say, see, I told you so. It didn't happen within the last 10,000 years. It happened maybe within the last 30 or 40,000 years. So,
and there's a lot more people who are supposedly some kind of experts who agree with you on that.
I have nothing to base it on other than my intuition and my gut. And unfortunately, neither of those are documented, 100% accurate, although I'm pretty good on some things. But you sit back and you take a look at all of this and you think, good heavens, this is such an amazing world, and there are such phenomenal things out there to be discovered. And everybody says, our last frontier has been explored, and I mean, we have the sea to investigate, and Antarctica for sure. And we don't have to leave the planet to have new frontiers to delve into. And it's kind of like they want to land on asteroid belts, and they want to. I don't know why we want to put somebody on Mars, but that seems to be the newest thing. We've got to get somebody to Mars.
I think somebody's there.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't.
We already have people there, and they just don't want to talk about it.
Well, I believe that too, but I'm not sure we can sell it to a lot of people. But
well, I've done some postings on the website again using Google Earth Mars, and we found two structures, one in the northern hemisphere and one in the southern hemisphere, that look like contemporary modular structures. That would be for encapsulated living. The most recent, it's, very convincing as far as I'm concerned. I think you and I have talked about this before. Again, using Google Earth Mars, found huge entrances that look contemporary, that any flying structure could fly into. And there's multiple entrances like this, and even though they have the same basic garage-looking entrance, the dimensions on them will vary from one to the other, so you're not just getting pictures of the same one. I think there's definitely stuff going on. We've got a picture that we have of a huge UFO that's landed, and it's clearly a UFO. It can't be anything else. So there's a lot of activity on Mars. I think it was destroyed in a very dramatic way at some point in the past, but I think it's regenerating, if nothing else, just by humans.
Well, I would definitely agree with you on that. And as far as that goes, on your latest on the latest from Skyships over Cashiers, you've got one of the openings for one of the.
That.
Yeah,
and your listeners might find it interesting what the astronomers the NASA astronomers had to say about it. It says why these are their words totally. Why there is a circular crater surrounding this hole remains a topic of speculation, as is the full extent of the underlying cavern. Holes such as this are of particular interest because their interior caves are relatively protected from the harsh surface of Mars, making them relatively good candidates to contain Martian life. These pits are therefore prime targets for possible future spacecraft robots and even human interplanetary explorers. And that picture was taken back in 2011, but it just became available for the public to see early this year.
Wow. And you know what it resembled? It resembled the opening at the South Pole, too. So that maybe, we've been looking in the wrong places for the UFOs. Maybe the UFOs all go into the interior of whatever planet they're exploring, as opposed to landing on the surface, which would make sense to me.
Especially if the exterior of the planet is kind of hostile, and apparently that's the condition on Mars. So being inside the planet sounds like it's really smart.
Yeah, and going on that premise, I would think that we should be very, very careful, because we could look like the bad guys going to investigate, like sending our drones and stuff in, we could become the UFOs of we could swap positions, and we could be the UFOs or the. Yes, we could be the bad guys. We've been the bad guys before. Let's look at the Europeans' invasion of North America. I think we really need to be very, very careful with something like this, assuming that there are inhabitants. Being very cautious about how we approach the whole thing, so that we don't look like invaders.
You're right.
Because that's what we would look like if we were sending drones in to check something out, or if we sent in our little white men with their spacesuits on to check something out. They would look like aliens to another species.
Absolutely.
Isn't that funny? After all these years of trying to see if there was life out there, we discovered there was, and we became the aliens that had to be destroyed.
I love the way your mind works. You probably, we posted it on the website, and you probably heard it in the regular news. Israel's former security space program director, or head of it, went public with his statement that we are involved with the Galactic Federation of Aliens. And not only did he say that, but he said there's an agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens. And since we're talking about Mars, I'll read one more sentence from his statement. There's an underground base in the depths of Mars where their representatives, meaning the ETs, are located, and also our American astronauts.
Yes, I saw that. I just, well, if they keep so much from us, it's our minds will run wild. Mine will, especially.
But that's confirmation from somebody who's been in a very high-ranking position, and he held that security space program director's position from 1981 to 2010. So he's been involved with that kind of thing for a very long time. And his statement was published in the Jerusalem Post on December 8th. That's when the story broke.
And we just got our space program going.
Supposedly.
Supposedly, well, it's been going since the 80s, but now I'm hoping that Biden doesn't decide to shut it down.
The space program that we know of, like going to the moon and things like that, that's like kindergarten stuff. The advanced
it's also
stuff
a waste
is
of
what
money.
Yeah, and the advanced stuff is already going on, and it's going on primarily on Mars. So I don't think it makes much difference what we do with the moon. Besides, it's pretty convincing now that there are aliens on the backside of the moon, and they really don't want us messing around with them.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, our political system is nothing compared to humanity's destiny of beyond this planet. So that my thought was always that this planet would have to come together and act as one, and it doesn't look like we're anywhere near close to that.
In fact, I think we're in worse shape right now than we have been in my lifetime, as far as getting along.
Oh yeah, I mean, throw a pandemic in there and see what you get. Yeah, it's very. I can remember times of peace. I really can. At least when I thought the world was peaceful. But today it's more frightening than ever, and I don't know if this is something we have to go through in order to find peace, or there's so much anger that it boggles my mind. There's a lot of fear, and that again adds to separatism as opposed to let's get together. The United States, when 9/11 happened, the world stopped, and everybody came together. There have been a few times when something like that happens and everybody drops their differences and binds together. I'm not seeing that happening with this pandemic. It's we're afraid of one another, and we're banning trips, people from this country or that country because of something that's coming our way. And this is a time that I've never. I mean, I'm only 76, 77. I'm in there someplace.
You don't know. I don't know what I can do to help you.
Nothing. I'm in my 70s, and I don't remember this kind of fear and isolation ever before in my life. I work from home. I'm not as isolated. I'm isolated anyhow. So a lot of this hasn't touched me the way it's touched the general population, and I've never seen anything like it. And it's a very sad thing to observe. And if we come out of it, I'll be so happy. But it doesn't feel like that's going to happen anytime real soon. So we'll just muck around and keep going. And I have to thank you so much for bearing with my technical difficulties here. But I think I got them figured out. Okay. All righty. So you got everything we need for tonight, and I hope that your audience got something out of it. If nothing else, they'll remember Yanaguni. Well, and Skyships over Cashiers, please do check out that website. It is an amazing website. I am so delighted that Mary takes time out to spend an hour a month here with us, because it's a website that should be seen. There's so much information. The archives are there. It will titillate you. You will find yourself driven to investigate, which is the best way of teaching ever. And it's so brilliantly done. It's graphically, attractive, and if you don't read any of her other books, read Bigfoot Beyond the Footsteps, because it is. I'm sorry, Mary. I love that book so much. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's just a nice kind of loving story. Her other books are really good too, but Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints is the kind of book you want to sit down and read with your kids, because I cried at certain times in it. It was so beautifully done. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's my favorite. I've given it as gifts all over the place. So Mary, thank you again. And Merry Christmas. Hopefully, to you too. And I look forward to next month, and can't wait to see what you dig up. All righty. You take care. Good night now. Night, night.